From the last stylebender reuniting with his ultimate rival against racism, to fight fans obsessing over what Pereira could have done to the staffer, here's what Israel Adesanya had to say about Alex Pereira's racist encounter. While running his usual errands, poor guy Pereira was caught completely off guard in an uncomfortable interaction no one wants to be a part of.
Pô, tô vendo o Walmart aqui, os caras me seguindo aqui, velho.
You see, the former middleweight champion was casually making his way down a Walmart aisle only to notice a staff member trailing him. Alex still wasn't sure what was going on at this point, and while he had an idea he was being racially profiled, he decided to film the whole incident just to be sure. Pereira even mentions how he's about to turn into another aisle to confirm his suspicion, only for the Walmart employee to continue following him, proving everyone's worst nightmare. And even though Alex is a professional fighter with nerves of steel, you could see him get really uncomfortable, because nobody wants to be followed around by a random guy anywhere. The Brazilian mixed martial artist uploaded the video on his social media, surprisingly getting a reaction out of Israel Adesanya, his longtime rival. And it would be an understatement to say Izzy was disgusted. He tweeted the clip on his Twitter and talked about how this has happened to him countless times too. It's absolutely sickening to see how Pereira, who's not only one of the biggest names in the UFC, but also a former champion, can't escape racism. But fans still think both Pereira and Adesanya should wait. Before assuming the worst, some people put out the idea that maybe the guy was just a fan and couldn't gather the courage to go up to Pereira. But either way, Adesanya thinks the guy's super lucky he didn't try anything. Now, I'm pretty sure Alex wouldn't have knocked him out, but when you think about it, that guy really didn't know what he was in for. Things could have turned ugly for him in no time, but credit to Pereira for keeping his cool throughout the situation, because racial discrimination can get a rise out of even the calmest people. So it wouldn't have been a surprise had the Brazilian lashed out. Even though he thought the staffer made the right decision to not engage Pereira, Adesanya wishes he'd tried to, because he really wanted to see some public justice. And you're probably thinking right now, why is the champ so invested in all of this? Well, being a man of color himself, Adesanya knows what it feels like to be racially profiled, since it's happened to him multiple times in the past. But the last stylebender tweeted how that's changed since he became famous. So whenever he does get followed now, it's not because of the color of his skin, but because he has a ton of fans excited to meet him. That still doesn't mean he doesn't get annoyed though. After all, these highly skilled, brutal fighters are humans too, and sometimes they just want to hang out alone or with their friends and family without having their privacy invaded. After the clip went viral in the MMA community, fans have been divided, with some thinking it wasn't exactly racial profiling. Honestly, the fact that Pereira was uncomfortable obviously means the employee was doing something wrong. But there's word going around that maybe the guy didn't have any bad intentions at all. Some fans have speculated that he was just following Pereira around in case he needed help, so when you think about it like that, it does kind of make sense. I mean, as an employee, you have to cater to the customers, and in Walmart, Pereira isn't an MMA fighter or former champion, he's a customer like everyone else. After all, Walmart employees don't really get paid the big bucks, so sometimes it pays off to stick around and see if a customer needs help, if you're aiming for a raise or a promotion. On the other hand, most fans can't help but take the situation at its face value, doubling down on calling it racial profiling because the staffer following him was white. I mean, as much as we'd like to beat around the bush, the fact of the matter is that Pereira was followed, for whatever reason it might have been. If the employee really had the purest intentions, he wouldn't be hanging back and tailing Pereira. Instead, he could have just come up and talked to him. If that was the case, none of this controversy would have happened in the first place. Credit to Pereira, though. He handled the entire situation like a true champion, because if he really wanted to, it would have been a piece of cake to deal with the creeper. But on a lighter note, fans' reactions to the video were hilarious. One user wrote how this would have never happened if the employee knew what Alex pulled up in, because there's a solid chance he was probably the richest guy in the store that day. While another MMA enthusiast wrote how Alex is the last guy he'd ever want to follow, because if he just so happens to be in a hook's range, it's game over for the Walmart worker. I mean, if the guy ever saw Pereira's highlight reel, he would have quit his job right then and there. Heck, the employee didn't even figure out Alex was taking a video of him. And now he's known worldwide as the guy who followed around a former UFC middleweight champion in a superstore. Well, that's what you get then, I guess. If Pereira's rage got the best of him and he let all hell loose, I don't even know how the store could have stopped him. Some people thought that if the staffer got hit by the former middleweight champion, it'd almost be a flex for the guy, because his name would be up there on a list with Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya, for guys who got knocked out by Alex Pereira. I don't know if it's worth it, though, because of the massive hospital bill he'd end up with. So we're all better off thanking Pereira for keeping his composure. But the whole online interaction makes you wonder if it officially means things are cool between Izzy and Pereira. Well, just because Adesanya backed him up doesn't mean they're friends. In fact, before the online interaction took place, both of them had a ridiculous coincidental meeting at the airport too. The moment was captured hilariously by Izzy recording a video of Pereira standing in line behind him. So, it's nice to see how there's no bad blood after all the gruesome damage they've dealt each other. Oh, and as for that rude employee, it's only a matter of time before the internet figures out who he is and puts him on blast for his actions. It also doesn't help his situation that he's dealing with the online MMA community, which is famous for having some of the most brutal and loyal fans. But hey, at least getting torn apart on the internet is better than what Pereira could have done to him. Oh, that didn't stop the fans from thinking up every way things could have gone south. Just imagine if the guy had somehow gathered enough courage to confront Pereira. There's honestly no worse position I can think of than the Walmart employees in that situation. One fan wrote about how Alex could have taken anything he wanted from the store, and the guy really couldn't have done anything about it. Sadly, though, this situation never should have happened in the first place. And seeing how big of a problem racial profiling is becoming, we can't expect Walmart or Pereira to fix it. After all, this definitely isn't the first time it's happened, and it won't be the last either. Besides that, the employee should consider himself lucky, because if it was someone like Nate Diaz or Mike Perry, he would have woken up in the hospital. But I'm pretty sure the employee has seen himself on social media by now and feels embarrassed for what he did. Hopefully, it's gonna act as a reminder for everyone not to be that guy. Even fans of Pereira were glad he didn't knock the guy's lights out, because it wouldn't have ended well for the former champion either, with the legal trouble he'd have to go through. And with the Jan Blachowicz fight slowly approaching at UFC 291, the last thing he'd want to do is create controversy. So, there you have it, folks. From fight fans obsessing over what Alex could have done to the staffer, to the last stylebender reuniting with his ultimate rival against racism, that's what Israel Adesanya had to say about Pereira's racial encounter.